What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I am talking about the latest offering from Swiss folky mellow death legends Eluveitie with ANV. This also came out on April 25th, this time on Nuclear Blast Records. And this is the band's 9th studio full-length overall. I actually remembered reviewing their last album, and I thought it was a pretty damn good album. So for those who don't know, or have been living under a rock, Eluveitie, like I said, they're from Switzerland, and they play a hybrid of folk metal and melodic death metal. Like, it's a perfect blend of the two. They sometimes will interweave a little bit of groove into their sound to add a little bit of extra dynamics in terms of tempo shifts. And, well, this is their first album in 6 years. It's been a long layover. So, curious to hear what this album has in store for us all. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about this right out of the gate, and these are like the 3 interludes or intro tracks. Like, the intro, Emerge, I typically am not the biggest fan of intros, but I actually really liked this intro. It was like mostly like cool guitar melodies, and it really builds up the mood of the album nicely. And then fast forward to another interlude, the title track. It's mostly chants, but Fabienne, who's their female vocalist and also does a lot of cool stuff with her voice, she's carrying this song, and it's really, really pretty. Then you fast forward to another interlude with a.k.a. It's largely like acoustic guitars with spoken word. And then the final interlude, Memories of Innocence, it's largely a big acoustic and violin interlude. Like, typically, I'm not the world's biggest fan of interludes, but these interludes, I actually didn't mind too much, because they all carried the atmosphere of the album. But now let's get to the big tracks. Kicking off with Paranoia's sweet drums right out of the rip. And then you get into, like, melodic riffs, but they still have a lot of heaviness to them. And blast beats, which you do get blast beats pretty rarely on this album, but when blast beats do show up, they are pretty damn fast, if I'm gonna say so myself. But largely when it comes down to like the heavier metal moments, like I said, it's largely melodic death metal. Like here, as well as the song Premonition and The Harvest and Aeon of the Crescent Moon. Those songs carry so much melodic death metal tropes, but they play those tropes very well. Like in Premonition, for example, I get a lot of nods to a band like At the Gates, for example. Whereas with Paranoia's, kind of made me think of bands like Dark Tranquillity or Old in Flames to a degree, where all of it, it's very kind of thrashy forward in terms of the rhythms and the way the riffs are being played, but done with a melodic death metal style. And of course, when it comes down to the vocals, I forget the name of the main frontman, but Fabienne, they both trade off each other very, very well. Like the main frontman, he's doing all the big growls, and he's got a very strong presence with his vocals. But also some cool chugs come in on Paranoia's, but then you get into the Prodigal ones. Starts off with an awesome guitar melody, and for the most part the song goes into like a galloping rhythm at double time, and the guitars, I gotta say, the guitar tones on this album are very hefty, like really chunky, which adds more heaviness to the overall melodic sounds of this album. And then back to a song like Awin. This is where groove starts to become a bigger thing on the album. Like, it starts off with a groovy rhythm, but it's got somber melodies. It's actually kind of dark melodies. And for the most part, it's Fabienne doing the vocals mostly on this song, and probably one of the biggest choruses on the album shows up here as well. And then right at the very end, you get arguably the heaviest riff of the entire album. And then we get into, like, back to the song The Harvest. The mellow death vibes on this song feel closer to Finnish melodic death metal. Like, Insomnium, I would say, for example, but with a bit more heft on the heavier guitars. And even guttural vocals come in briefly, and they're pretty nasty sounding. Of course, it goes back and forth between groove and gallops and some thrash parts that show up. It's just all over the map when it comes down to these songwriting ideas in terms of like, okay, let's shift the tempos here, here, and see what happens. And they don't feel jagged or sharp. They feel natural in terms of the progression. And then All Is One, this one, I think, is like the big kind of ballad on the album. Like, the first half of the song is largely driven by Fabian's vocals, but also like the mandolin and hurdy-gurdies. But the heft does come in with the chorus and even the solos. Like, I will go ahead and talk about the lead work on this album. There are leads across a lot of different instruments. In terms of the guitars, you do get quite a few guitar solos, and they're done quite well, even if some of them might be a little bit basic. But a good chunk of lead work on here is down to like the violins, the hurdy-gurdies, the mandolin, the mandola. All the folky instruments all provide some really cool leads. Most particularly in Aeon of the Crescent Moon, you get like the hurdy-gurdy and violin harmonizing together for a lead section, which I thought was really, really cool. And speaking of Aeon of the Crescent Moon, like I said, this one, it sticks to it opens up with more symphonic atmosphere, but the riffs and the gallops that come along here feel closer to Amon Amarth than anything else. And then you get to the closer, the Prophecy. Starts off with like ambience, spoken word, and chants, and it does build nicely, even though it does drag a little bit. Like, this is largely 1/3 of this song is the build up, and then the rest of the song, it does get back to heft. Like, there's heavy riffs, heavy grooves, but you still get melody carrying the whole way through. Production-wise, and the mix, I thought was pretty solid. After all, you had a kind of an all as one production. You have Jonas Wolf, who's one of the guitarists, helping out in the production, but the two main producers, the legendary Jens Bogren and Tommy T. Barron from Corner, who has been pretty much like the guy producing Eluveitie's albums for many years. So, interesting production trio you got here, and they do a pretty good job at balancing everything out. Of course, all these songs, folk is all over the map, whether it's violins, hurdy-gurdies, mandolas, mandolins, whistles, pipes, all sorts of stuff. I know folk metal's not for everybody, but I don't mind folk metal. I think it's pretty fun to listen to when you're in the mood for it. As far as any complaints go, really, the closer being kind of dragging that build was maybe one of the only things. Then maybe some of the the interludes maybe could have been just attached to songs, but that's about it. So overall, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I thought this was a great follow-up, and if you're a fan of Eluveitie, chances are you're already going to get this. But of course, those are just my opinions. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.